Can you access the US credit system 100% remotely as a non-US business owner? Well, most people will tell you that it is impossible, that you need multiple trips to the US, or multiple in-person meetings with banks, or even spend thousands of dollars in travel expenses just to establish yourself in the US markets. But what if I told you that that's not true? Here's what most non-US business owners don't realize about this process. While most of my private clients are leveraging the best US financial tools remotely, non-US business owners who believe that American credit is impossible are stuck with limited funding, higher interest rates, lower redemption for their business spend, and access to subpar financial tools. Here's why, after getting my hands on multiple US credit cards, including this Amex, and helping over 500 plus clients get their hands on $4.3 million in American credit, this video will give you the clarity on what requires an in-person visit, or if you can do the whole process 100% remotely. Because keep in mind, based on the type of credit access that you will want, everyone's situation will be different. And as a quick disclaimer, this is for education purposes only. I advise you to go seek qualified professionals for your specific situation, or you can just get in contact with my team. But without wasting any time, let's dive straight in. So the main question that you want to ask yourself is, how far do you want to go? How many financial tools and what kind of access are you really looking for? The type of roadmap that I will give a client that is starting from zero and wants to just access a US LLC, pay 0% taxes, and maybe a business bank account or whatnot, that person's situation will be completely different for a client that wants to access $1 million worth of funding. Now, don't get me wrong. Most of the actions that we are taking when helping someone access the American financial system, a lot of the process is done remotely. So the main question you want to ask yourself is, am I looking for business funding? Or do I just really want access to the best travel credit cards in the world? Do I want an Amex? Do I want a Chase Sapphire Reserve? Do I want to just access business banking products? And so based on what you're looking for specifically, it might require an in-person visit. And so just so that we make things clear over here, the US system works in 3 phases specifically. The first thing that you got to do is build your personal credit identity. The second thing is expand into business credit. And then lastly, get access to the premium credit cards, premium business credit cards, premium personal credit cards, right? For the traveling, and then the business credit cards for the 0% interest terms. And by the way, if you've never heard about this before, the USA can give you access to 6 figures in business credit cards at 0% interest, right? And again, that 0% interest, I'm not gonna tell you it's 0% interest forever. It's 0% interest for about 1 to 2 years. But if you really think about it, there's 500 plus different banks in the United States that offer these types of financial products. So you can technically have access to 0% interest credit cards for a very long time, pretty much for eternity. But this is only for education purposes. Keep in mind that there will be some minute details when it comes to your personal situation. So once you know what you want to achieve specifically, and by the way, for those that are at least spending more than $10,000 a month, I would highly recommend you to at least get your hands on the best personal credit cards or business credit cards, because again, you're running a business, you want to get access to the highest cashback credit cards, as well as better business funding. So once you know what you want to achieve specifically, let me now break down exactly what are the things that you can do remotely and 100% online. So when it comes to setting up structures, right? So your LLC, you don't have to be a US citizen. You can do this 100% remotely. When it comes to your EIN, you can do this online through the IRS portal. If you want to get your ITIN, the tax ID number that will identify you in the American financial system, that can be done 100% remotely. You want to learn more about the ITIN? I've got more videos about that in my channel. If you want to get access to a US mailing address, you can do that again 100% remotely. You can get an address through a lot of different providers online, which you can find on Google or whatnot. But personally, keep in mind that if you do not get a high quality address, in many cases, your address will not be accepted by the banks. So keep in mind, you want to go for something that's high quality. That's honestly exactly why we purchase real locations in America for our private clients. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're spending more than $10,000 a month, I don't expect you to understand all of these minute, intricate details. If you want to just skip the line and work with someone that already knows how to do this whole process for you, you can just apply down below and learn a bit more about our services. A few other things that you can do, honestly, 100% remotely is banking. So you can get access to business bank accounts, right? So business fintechs such as Mercury, Relay, Slash, you can do that 100% remotely, as well as payment rails, right? So Wise, Revolut's, which allows you to get good cross-border payouts. So you can get access to fintech-based business bank accounts, right? And along with those fintechs, you can also get your hands on corporate credit cards. These are not business credit cards. These are what are typically called corporate credit cards because these specific credit cards, they require a lot of liquidity. And personally, I've got a lot of clients that decided to work with us due to the fact that they have credit cards with Mercury, right? They might have a $10,000, $40,000 credit card with Mercury, but they've got a business where they're spending 6 figures plus a month on their inventory or their ads. And it simply just isn't enough for them, right? So what else can you do remotely? You can also open up personal bank accounts. So there are some personal bank accounts that you can also open up 100% remotely. I've actually dropped down all of the different alternatives in another video about personal bank accounts, but just to keep it short, you can open up an account with Alliance, which we've seen clients open up accounts with. You can open up an account remotely with Charles Schwab, which is one of the great alternatives. And there's a few others that I've broken down in other YouTube videos, which always gets updated, by the way. There are some credit unions that allow you to open up personal accounts as well as some other banks. Now let's talk about some other things that you can do 100% remotely. So look at this, like there's a lot of things you can do remotely, right? This is exactly why a lot of non-US citizens like this American financial system. You can do a lot of it without a trip. So let's talk about the cards that you can open up. So remote corporate credit cards such as Brex, Ramp, and some other ones, they allow you to get access to corporate credit cards based on your balances and revenue, right? So here's the thing. When it comes to corporate credit cards, they're expecting a high level of liquidity. And when it comes to your redemptions, cashback, and whatnot, they won't be the Amex level cashback or the Chase Sapphire Reserve based cashback or the 6-figure credit cards that doesn't require any financials or liquidity and whatnot. So you don't have to drop a bunch of money or show them a bunch of financials like these cards specifically. But if you're a business owner and you absolutely cannot do a trip down to the United States, what's available to you is these remote corporate credit cards like Brex, which I've seen a lot of private clients utilize, which by the way, they eventually then want to go and access the Chase cards, which are a lot better, by the way, as well as the Amex cards, right? So then what's available to you when it comes to personal credit cards? Like, as you see, there's a lot of things you can do remotely. You can get access to a few different secured credit cards. Secured credit cards are pretty much debit cards where you put money on that card and you can spend that money on that specific credit card. The reason why this is important is because secured credit cards are on the personal side, right? It builds up your US financial identity, as well as some other different providers such as First Cards. But here's the main thing that I want to emphasize. If you want to build up your personal credit and your personal financial identity, typically it will require an in-person visit. And with most of the clients that have worked with us that have wanted to get access to the best premium travel credit cards or the best business funding in the world, 0% interest terms and whatnot, typically they end up wanting to do one specific trip. Let's continue talking about what's available to you remotely. You can get access to payment processors 100% remotely. Keep in mind, when it comes to doing this process remotely, you've got to make sure that you nail all of the documents. You can't just get away doing this 100% online and not having synchronized base documents. And so the last thing that you can do 100% remotely is get access to payment processors, right? So payment processors basically allow you to charge credit cards to allow you to professionally receive payments from your specific company. So it is a great thing to do. So to summarize this very quickly, what you can do is set up a structure, get access to American banking on the personal and the business side, get access to corporate credit cards and some personal credit cards here and there, as well as payment processing. So that's what's available to you 100% remotely. So now let's talk about what's actually available to you if you show up to the United States. And so just keep in mind that just because you're showing up to the US and you can do a US trip doesn't mean you'll open up these accounts. It's important that if you do decide to show up, you've got all of your documents set up in place. You're also going to the right bankers because keep in mind, not every single teller and banker understands how to process a non-US citizen, and make sure you've got all the documents set up. That's exactly why we've got a team in Miami and we actually set people up with appointments with ITI and specialized agents, right? So just keep this in mind because I don't want someone to show up to the US and end up spending thousands of dollars on travel and end up walking away with no open up bank accounts. That literally happened to me years ago. And that's exactly why I started this company and it's been going great. So what's actually available to you now if you show up to the US? What's available to you is the big 5 banks. You can open up a personal credit identity if you show up to the US. You open up banks with Chase, you open up banks with Bank of America, Citi, Wells Fargo, US Bank, and pretty much what happens when you open up these personal bank accounts and personal credit cards, which by the way, if you show up to the banks, you've got all of these details, you've got your incorporation, you've got your ITIN, you've got your residential address. There should be no reason why they should not open up an account. So when you show up in person, you can open up personal bank accounts with all of the big 5 banks, as well as the fact that you can open up business bank accounts and business credit cards. Now, here's one thing to keep in mind. If you open up too many credit cards just in one shot, you probably will be declined, because after you apply for 3 to 4 different personal credit cards or business credit cards all combined, then you're probably not going to get approved, because again, these are rules that are inside of the credit industry. We've been able to help our clients do this in one shot. One thing to keep in mind with most of our clients, they show up to the US, and a large majority, most of our clients end up never coming back to the US, right? So that's really all that they had to do to reach their goals when it comes to the type of personal credit cards or business credit cards that they want to have, right? So that's basically what's available to you, as well as the fact that you can get US-based ID, which pretty much accelerates this process. So really, just so that you understand the reason why doing an in-person meeting is such an important thing, is the fact that if you do it, then you get noticed by the credit bureaus, you get noticed by the big 5 banks, and you're starting to establish relationships with the strongest banks in the world pretty much. Chase Bank, Bank of America, American Express, and that sets you up with the foundation to be able to get those Chase Sapphire Reserve cards or those premium credit cards or whatnot, business funding and all that kind of stuff that comes along with having access to the big 5 banks, right? So this really matters if you are a business owner that's spending more than $10,000 a month, because you can't really find any other better redemption rates other than cards within the big 5 banks or inside of American Express. So just some personal tips if you end up going to the United States and end up doing this in-person bank account opening process. You want to open up between 3 to 4 personal bank accounts, 3 to 4 personal credit cards, as well as maybe 1 or 2 business bank accounts. And when it comes to business credit, you can do a large majority of this process remotely. If you want to open up 1 business credit card or whatnot, you can do that, but ideally your main focus with this trip specifically is open up personal credit cards. So keep in mind, if you establish your personal financial identity, then you can leverage that to actually open up business accounts, and it's much easier. You can do this much more remotely in that context. So that's pretty much your options over here. And just keep in mind, like, there are some people that might have visa issues. We personally had a client from Japan that told us, hey, like, JP, I want to get access to these credit cards, but I cannot show up to the US within the next year. And so what we ended up doing with that client was we just started right away and we said, okay, cool. We can do all these things remotely. We're going to leverage our relationships to open up a few different accounts with lenders and whatnot, so you can at least start building up that business credit as well. And eventually, once you are able to show up to the US, then you can open up a Chase bank account or a Bank of America bank account, right? And when you show up after working that whole entire year on the remote side, on your personal, your business and whatnot, then you're showing up to Chase with 100% confidence. You're walking away with significant credit limits. And that, honestly, I cannot wait for that to happen. So here's my personal recommendation. If you absolutely cannot travel to the US, you might be from a blacklisted country, you might have visa issues, then of course, you don't really have any options to show up to the US. So really what you've got to do is the remote options if you want to set yourself up in the American financial system. If you have the capacity to go to the US, you've got a decent passport, then here's what I would recommend. If you're spending less than $10,000 a month, what I would recommend is you can get things like your ITIN. You can set up an incorporation. You can open up business accounts. If you go to the US often, then maybe you can do this in-person meetup. But the second path, if you are spending more than $10,000 a month, I would tell you right here, honestly, that the cost of you doing this trip, going up and setting up these accounts, the time that you might lose when it comes to being on the plane and whatnot, there is a larger cost for not having access to these financial tools. Because keep in mind, you're spending more than $10,000 a month. That is pretty much 40,000 points a month if you've got the right credit card that you are losing every single month that you're spending on a debit card or a foreign credit card. So just keep in mind, like, honestly, if you're spending more than $10,000 a month, you have the capacity to go to the United States. This pretty much is a no-brainer idea for yourself personally. So now that you know your options, whether you should do this in person or remotely, I've created a simple 12-minute video breaking down the 9-digit number that you need to get your foot in the American financial system. Without it, nothing works. If you want to get access to premium US credit cards like the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Amex Platinum, it all starts with this simple 9-digit number. If you missed that video, be sure to check it out. Get your foundations first, then choose the path. Remote or in person, both works, but only with the right foundation. I'll see you in the next video.